Guys, welcome to the Raise Rowdy podcast. Yay!
Yay!
We're clapping for ourselves. My name is Kurt Ozon, and this is my host over here. His name's Nick Tressler.
Yeah, I'm the guy that you can't see in the wide shot, but
Okay.
we're going to fix it.
Okay, there you go.
I'm Nicky T, and back for the second time ever, our good buddy, Colby Acuff.
Hello, everybody. How we doing? Good
Hi.
to see you. Thanks, Kurt, for the clap. Appreciate it.
Yay!
Whenever I do a podcast with somebody that I know very well, it's always like I have to go into podcast mode. Look, when we had Rob on, I was like I talked to you literally every day of my life, and obviously the same with Colby. I made you breakfast and coffee today, and we carpooled here
Because we're neighbors.
Yes. Yes, it's
Strategic
not
neighbors,
We did
though.
not have a sleepover party.
Strategic neighbors. I remember Kurt was like, "This house is going up beside me." I'm like, "Bro, you know I'm way too poor to live beside you in East Nashville." But Colby's not.
I did figure it out. I had to, sell some things, pawn a couple things.
Yeah,
I made
yeah.
it work.
Yeah. Hey, that's what it's all about, making it all work.
Location.
Yeah.
I will say that living next to your friend is something I literally right next door is something I haven't done since I was in college.
College.
And yeah. Or and it's the fucking best, man.
It's
Isn't
like a
it?
roommate that you can get away from.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I
Yes.
was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had roommates for years, and this is definitely the level up option for sure. And I love having roommates and whatnot, but this is.
Like Whitney.
More gooder.
All right, here we go.
Are we all doing this?
Yeah, just for Jesus and Charlie to love us more.
Yep.
We got Charlie here today too. Hi,
Yay.
Charlie. We love you. We have a mic for Charlie now. Look.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
we could be
listen.
like, Charlie, look up the stat, like how Rogan does it. Be like, yeah, can you pull up just the population of Nepal, please? And then we can figure that out.
Oh boy.
But we're super thankful to have Charlie back here in the studio with us. We love you, Charlie.
Yay.
The most perfect
Produce
boy.
us.
Yeah.
Yes, truly.
So we had you on the podcast before. It was a great episode. And one of the things that I talked about when we had that podcast was the hang after the podcast. We got to talk about so much more cool stuff. So we just,
Yeah, because we were drinking
yeah, because there was
and not recording.
cigars and no recording mechanisms. But that's one of the things that we had since talked about and said that maybe if we did a little bit of a longer pod, we get into some of that cooler stuff.
100%. Yeah, I think we just, I think also the first pod, I'd been on podcast before, and it was such for me, not a formal
you were
event,
scared
but
and
I just
nervous.
don't want to say anything stupid,
Yeah.
And it was before Kurt and I were neighbors.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so now I just don't care anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's better to have that feeling. I mean, you know what not to say, right? Or what
hope
to
so.
say, I guess,
Yeah.
Were you media trained? Does that work?
No,
Did they do that?
I was not media
You're like,
trained.
we ain't doing all that.
Look at me.
Yeah.
You're doing great, dude.
Your overalls are luxurious. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is Dickies your favorite brand of overalls?
Yeah, because, well, I don't know. I do like the Dickies ones a lot because they're a little bit bigger in
the leg.
pant leg, which
Yeah.
is actually pretty breezy,
Yeah.
which is good. I mean, I actually like wearing these on hot days.
Yeah.
Like we have a show and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Better than tight jeans.
I think you wore those when we saw you in Athens.
Probably.
Yeah. Western White Pines.
Man, that was a fucking great show. Let's talk about that show.
Georgia
Okay.
Theater.
Yeah, Georgia Theater opening for Flatland.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my Flatland t-shirt right now. Cigarettes and Adderall.
I'm
Don't
wearing
do
my
those.
Creed t-shirt right now.
True. God, that shirt is so extra. Let's see that.
It's official band merch too.
They made that?
Oh yeah. They're in on the bit, dude.
That's fucking unreal.
I do think so. One thing about our merch that I would like to say,
Is more of your face.
well, yeah, so it got brought up this weekend. We were on tour with Flatland.
Sick.
They were because I wear a lot of nature tees, those funny gas station.
Oh,
Or
I want that cat astronaut one. Can I have it?
No,
Okay.
it's one of a kind. I only found it in One Loves, but I have a ton of those shirts, and I think this is not my original idea, but I do think it'd be funny if we made a shirt that was like a nature tee, but it was with the band.
Oh,
So it'd be
yeah.
my face kind of faded out above a mountain with all the guys on it. There's
Some wolves
fish
howling.
and wolves and stuff, and it's got kind of that tie-dye, not a tie-dye shirt, but it'd be that blue or brown with
For
like
sure.
the tie dye flowing through it.
Yeah.
Just
But
take,
what?
take my money, dude.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what happens when you fire all the band, though, dude? You know.
I never do that.
Whoa. Let's not talk about firing band guys on this podcast.
Those are dirty words here.
Yeah, the only people just leave my band if anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've been playing the same band from Idaho for this would be I think we're going into our 4th year.
I love that too. I remember when you
Yeah.
were moving to town, I was like, are the guys coming down? And you're like, dude, they're all coming. And I
Yeah,
was like,
dude,
yes.
because it's a hard thing to do to ask somebody to, because like you're not just asking the band person, the player, to be like, hey, let's follow let's pull on this thread, see how far it goes. You're also asking their family and their whatever.
Because they're married, and like Josh is married and Eric's married and they have kids. And,
Right, and they moved everybody down, and and I'm not foolish enough to think that it's just my dream, because obviously everybody wants to do this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the vision and the branding for what is the Colby Acuff experience is the thing that kind of weighs on my shoulders to bring everybody down, and so. I guess the point is I'm just really happy with everybody in my band and on the team, and I couldn't be more thankful for the guys.
Yeah. You have a great team and great boys in the band.
Yeah, I mean, they have the hardest job in the world. They have to make me sound good.
Yeah.
This is the easiest job in the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about the band. Let's talk about that show, like Kurt said. That was my first time at the Georgia Theater, which
Same.
is a freaking awesome venue, by the way. If you haven't been fans of the podcast or fans of Colby, really, really cool spot in Athens, and sounds great in there.
Yeah, dude, they do a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
mean,
One
plus-
of the better sounding rooms, in my opinion, that I've been to, like of that size, and it's probably because it's old and awesome.
Yeah, but what a fun town too.
Yeah.
Like it was my very first time being down in there, and I grew up. I mean, we don't have to get into it now, but I did grow up a Bulldogs fan from Idaho. It's like
Go
a whole
Dogs.
whole thing. Whoa. And but it was my very first time in Athens actually, and that was really fun. I remember we ended up at the Waffle House until about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Solid times.
It was
Great show
blessed.
though.
Dude, you guys fucking rocked, man.
Yeah.
There was so much energy, and like the vocal was it was like perfect. It was awesome.
Oh,
You
thank
guys
you.
really crushed. And I will say about you guys, and since I have played in your band, it's like there's no like bullshit going on. It's just a bunch of guys in a band. You guys run click track even?
No.
So
Yeah.
it's just literally a bunch of guys on stage
Letting it
just
loose.
doing it the right way, and I love it, man.
Thank you,
and
man.
you guys crushed live.
Well, we love, I mean, we really are. I think I probably brought this up in the last pod, but we truly are just like a honky tonk band that now gets to play our own original shows. And the other thing that we love to talk about is, I don't know if you guys know, like Huey Lewis and the News,
Yeah,
that
of
band. Their motto is like, yeah, we're the bar band that made it. And that's truly kind of our thing. I mean, I don't know, we've been talking about, flirting with the idea of a click, but then we play live and I'm like, dude, I kind of like it when we push this chorus a little bit and we kind of get to go back down in this verse and yada, yada, yada. But I don't know. Yeah. As of right now, we're just 100% playing it up.
Just doing it live. Raw? Live?
Raw.
Yeah.
Rive.
Live. Yeah,
Rive.
dude. I was
Create
wildly
that
impressed,
term.
man. I meant could have used a little bit of steel guitar, of course, but
Of course, always.
yeah.
And fiddle.
Yeah. But you guys rock, man. What a great night. And of course Flatland, man. They're
Oh,
great,
phenomenal.
too.
So good. Every time I get to see those boys, it's just another layer to their show too. Like those windmills and all that fun stuff.
Oh, dude. And I like my journey of kind of like the entirety of getting to Nashville and everything, besides, meeting you guys first, as far as our live touring starts with Flatland. And we open for them in Spokane. They kind of, we get in with Make Wake. They start giving us shows. So I've seen them from when they were they were driving this kind of piece of shit bus that they had in Spokane, all the way now, they got 2 buses and the production and everything. And I've got to kind of be a part of that experience with them the entire time. And they've been so good to us.
Yeah.
Plus it's great when, you open a show and you're so excited for the headliner to come on to play, because like you love all their songs, you love the guys, they're like family to you. it's been a great tour this year. We've had a lot of fun, and I just can't wait to keep going out with them.
Other than Georgia Theater, because we were there, so of course that one was super special.
Right.
Any other shows that you've had that have just been like really cool moments, or anything that stuck out?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the Ryman.
Yeah,
100%.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I had FOMO. I had FOMO about not being able to go to that.
Yeah, I mean, the Ryman was so special for so many reasons for me. One, obviously, like, it's the Ryman. If you look at, I have 3 venues that, like, I just have to play basically before I die. Mm-hmm. Number 1 is the Ryman.
Yeah, that
was my number 1. Like, I just really, really, really want to play this place. There is a special romance to the Ryman, And so, yeah, like, I mean, the Ryman was huge for us. And then another big reason why the Ryman was so important for me is actually because the night before the Ryman, my dad passed away.
Yeah.
And so being able to, it's hard to justify being on the road. But that is the conversation that we had. And, he was like, you got to go do your thing. And, yeah, I mean, I ended up dedicating a song to him on stage. And as an opener at the Ryman, and also I want to point out that it was Flatland's debut as well, and they sold it out.
Yeah.
And gave us that opportunity. But, as an opener, we got 2 standing ovations at the Ryman. I couldn't have asked for a better debut at the Ryman. And I know for a fact that I made my dad proud. He was definitely there. It was just I don't know if I'll ever be able to beat that show, to be honest.
Yeah. It's tough, man. And that's, I mean, even in my musical journey, like, my mom, misses me, of course, extensively and tells me often when I call her on the phone about it. But
right.
She's also so proud. And I'm sure your dad was, one of the most proud people on the planet seeing what you're doing, man.
He was, he was like my biggest fan. He was an amazing person. And I mean, obviously I'm very sad that he's gone, but he was truly like the best man I've ever met. So he lived a great life. And I know a lot of people, through that experience, I know a lot of people, or I've been meeting a lot more people who have lost their fathers and stuff. And it's kind of it's not a club you want to be in, but it's definitely a special kind of tight-knit family. And I've had a lot of those people kind of help me navigate what that looks like, especially as a touring artist, or even, and a lot of the guys that I know have been on the road that have been helping me through this. And it's kind of, the story is always the same, where it's like, they were on the road when it was happening. Their father was wanting them to do this and follow their dreams and stuff. So, I mean, once again, just a very selfless man, and made sure that was kind of the thing that he wanted me to do. So.
That's great. Was he in music at all, or just?
In college he was a drummer for like a 50s rock and roll band, and they used to play this venue in northern Idaho, and they played a couple different places, but the big one was this bar called Rathskeller's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And at the time, it was the biggest bar and sold the most beer in the Northwest out of anywhere else. And so they go in and play like Louie Louie, and they opened for a band called the Contempos, I believe, which did Rhythm of the Rain. But it was like a short stint thing that he did. But my mom went out of town, and he was like, I'm going to go buy you a drum set. So I got a drum set when I was like 11, and I'd already been playing piano.
Because your mom was
out of town? Yeah. And kind of he was always the one kind of pushing me in that direction. And my mom was obviously very supportive as well. She was pushing me in that direction as well. But when it came time to like quit real estate, or when I wanted to get into guiding, or when I wanted to move to Nashville, or, when I wanted to do all these things that were, I wouldn't say like a big left turn, but definitely something that was, me going in that direction, he would always say like, that's where you need to go. I mean, this is the move. And he's like, you got plenty of time. And he, cause my dad was a little bit older too. And so he would always tell me, I would definitely do it, because he goes, looking back, it seems like it was, so long ago, but I can see going forward coming quick.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me, where I was like, okay, yeah, like you have to live in the now. There's no like, oh, I'm going to save that for when I retire, or I'm going to save this moment for later, because you're not guaranteed later.
Yeah.
So you just you got to take every day and take every opportunity that the day gives you, and just make sure that you see those to the end and take those as far as you possibly can.
Makes sense.
And that's inspiring. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's one of those things too. You just realize how much your family does for you, throughout your life. And sometimes when you're in it, especially when you're younger, it's stuff you take for granted,
Oh my God. I remember when I was a kid, I don't want this to like be all dad content, but there's plenty of dad content to go
I'll
around
talk about
here.
dads all day long.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I remember like I was like 5 years old, and I had a career day coming up, and I was kind of like, I could be like this, or I could be this. I could be an astronaut.
It's always astronaut.
Yeah, or like maybe I really wanted to be Indiana Jones when I was a kid. It's like I want to be an archaeologist, and I really like history at a young age. And I was like, oh, I could definitely be Indiana Jones. And my dad was like, you're going to work for yourself. That's what you're going to do. And I was like, what? And he's like, don't worry, you're going to grow up one day and work for yourself. Because my dad was a pretty very self-made man. And he just never wanted a boss. And he, that was kind of his thing. And he taught me to be independent at such a young age, and not in a bad way, but it'd be like, how do I do this? He'd be like, figure it out.
Yeah.
Use your little brain. And I'm like,
Yeah.
But we did. And that he taught me to be independent at such a young age. By the time I was 18, I was so independent that I kind of had a little bit of a rebellion and independency, where I was like, I'm doing everything by myself and blah, blah, blah. But it ended up coming together really nicely.
Balances out.
Yeah.
And now you're the CEO of Colby Acuff,
LLC.
yeah, or whatever.
Mountain country music, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think working for myself was the only option, especially like being an independent kid and being an only child. Those two things for me, I think, just definitely ended up being a good storm for being,
a musician, and
maybe not so much a musician, but definitely gave me the right tools to get to run my own business and really dive into the business of it and run on my own.
That's one of the things too I talk about, and when I speak of you, I say I think Colby has the brain that is different than just the artist brain. Like, you understand the business side of this thing, and you understand the marketing side of this thing. I think you, in terms of like people that I've gotten to deal with, are one of the people that is more of the complete package of understanding all of that. So like, as a small business owner, which you are,
Right, yeah.
You kind of see those sides of it, and you understand how it interacts with your art, which I think is super cool and inspiring.
Yeah, when I decided, because I think for me, I just never wanted to, truly, I did not want to disappoint my parents ever when it came to kind of like what I decided to do. And I've always had this mentality where it's like, okay, if I'm going to be a fly fishing guide, I'm going to be the best goddamn fly fishing guide on the planet. Mm-hmm. I don't care what I make. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to sell real estate, I want to be really good at it. If I'm going to do stand-up comedy, I want to be the best at it. If I'm going to be a musician, I want to know everything about it, songwriting, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. And when I decided that I was going to try to be an artist, I learned very quickly that what I needed to learn not just my local market and how to like sell tickets to that, not just how to write songs. I need to learn everything about what it means to be a recording artist if I was to be at a label by myself at 23 years old, sitting in my living room doing nothing. Yeah. So I was working like 13, 14-hour days, watching YouTube videos and reading and like figuring out how to like upload my songs, not just to Spotify, and like not the distribution was actually the easiest part, but how do you register your songs to BMI? How do you collect your royalties? Who's going to collect your royalties? What do the cuts look like? How do I make sure that I own the masters and everything indefinitely? What does a good producer deal look like? All these things. And so I did that for about 6 months. I just like locked myself in my living room and did that. And then I learned as much as I possibly could. I didn't have any insider information, but I just kind of was going in that direction. So I gave myself like a crash course in music business and kind of built on from there.
Yeah.
Is there any resources that you can share for us people that want to learn about that stuff?
Yeah, so I can't exactly remember the name of the page, but the biggest one for me was definitely registering to BMI. And there, if you look up like how to register a song to BMI, there's like the very first video that pops up. I cannot remember the guy's name, but he runs like an amazing page. So much so, I mean, by the time I got to Nashville, I had something like 40 songs out. I had 3 records out. And I had uploaded all those to BMI as well as done the distribution myself. And I had used, I think, CD Baby for my distribution, which is also a great deal. It's like $90 to upload a record. And if you do the PRO deal, they only take, it's a classic admin deal. They take 10% to collect your royalties. But $90 to upload, if you're making songs in a closet, you got $90 for an upload. That's definitely a weekend gig. So, but this guy, he's like, oh yeah, here's how you do it, blah, blah, blah. And I did it. And then I came to Nashville and I had my very first meeting at BMI, which technically I was already a BMI artist because I was uploading myself, but I wanted to go to BMI myself to do an audit. So I was like, hey, can you audit me to make sure that these are uploaded correctly? And she was like, yeah, these are 100%. Like, you did a great job. And it's all thanks to this guy's YouTube page. So
That's super cool.
There's so much like tools out there for people nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. And like, just like you can get on YouTube and just learn just about anything.
Yeah.
all you have to do is want.
Truly.
That's it.
Truly.
You just have to have a drive, and you just have to have the want to do something. Mine was more of a need. I mean, I was broke, and I was super broke, and it's hard because I loved guiding so much. I mean, being a fly fishing guide is basically the exact opposite job of what I do now. It has the same, like, fly fishing guide, 120 to 150 days a year on the water, out of service. My only thing was fish. So amazing.
Sounds very relaxing.
It was. And, you know, like the thing, people, when I'm like, oh, I was a guide, everybody's always like, oh, I bet you had to deal with some real dickheads. Like, what was the worst client you ever had? Now, there were some bad ones, obviously, but 90% of it is like these amazing people who just want to learn, you know, the fish, and like they want to know all this stuff. And that was something that I had the knowledge to do. Now I spend, you know, 365 days a year in service.
Right.
I spend about 120 to 150 days on the road in clubs, but I still get the same kind of satisfaction of it where, you know, 99% of the shows are amazing. 99% of the fans are amazing. You might have one bad show here and there, and you might have one bad fan interaction here and there, but it's the same experience where I'm sharing something with somebody to try to like show them what we do.
Yeah. I love that. And coming from the background I have, which is like, I mean, I went to school to like be a teacher. So
Okay, yeah.
there's so much value and so much goodness that comes back from that, right?
Right.
You learn something so much better when you teach someone else how to do it. Right?
Oh my God. And the things that you learn that aren't that.
Yeah.
It's the, like, guiding made me a better fisherman.
Absolutely.
Because I was talking to my outfitter one day, and, you know, I was really struggling with these clients. And I had them for like 3 or 4 days. And they weren't the nicest, and the fishing was really bad. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Oh, and they weren't that good.
Yeah.
And, you know, my boss was like, well, here's the deal. You can only control the things you can control. He's like, you're literally out there. Your third party in your job is a fish.
Yeah.
So like, don't get too beat up, you know. He's like, but you can control how good the lunch is. You can control the experience. You can always, like, if it's too hot, bring chairs, bring more water, bring this, bring that, do this, you know, so on and other. And what he's telling me, without telling me, is he's like, you need to learn to observe better. Your observation skills are about 85%. You need to get yours to 100 to make sure that this situation, you know, whatever bad things that you have going on in the situation are culled immediately. And so then you start observing, and you start realizing, oh, wait a minute, like, there's a bird right there. That bird is eating that bug. Oh, that's the bug that the fish are eating as well. Oh, I need to do this. Like, that's the kind of stuff you start firing on.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other observation that he told me was, he's like, you got to realize when you're a fly fishing guide, he's like, you're a great fisherman. Could you go out there on those bad days and catch a lot of fish? Yes. But you are now fishing with the worst tool possible, and that is another person. So you have to fish through them. And that is how you're going to become a really good fly fisherman. Because there's like, you know, beginner, intermediary, good, great, best, guide.
Yeah.
And I think also guiding brought my songwriting super, like, it just skyrocketed my songwriting because the observation level was just going up so much. You know, the reads on what's going on around you at all time is so much more, like, it's just way more vivid to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a thing that I've observed more since I've been here too. Like, I noticed that with Kurt a lot because I hang out with him. Like, since with his photography, like, he'll see a moment,
Right.
and he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I have to capture this," you know. And I don't think that I've seen that extensively when I was back in Western Pennsylvania, you know.
Yeah, I mean, songwriters, it's like, it's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
like you just have this, it's like radar detection on 24/7. You're waiting for someone to say a line, and then you're like, all right, that's
Right.
going in the phone, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love to, Eddie, my producer, and I, it's his saying, but I love it more than any saying on the planet. I think it speaks super well to creatives, and that is, it's called the spotlight of the universe, is what he calls it. And so, like, for example, I don't write consistently for a year, but I think I've written about 450 songs.
Damn.
And I write anywhere from 30 to 50 a year. But, like, I haven't written one so far this year, but typically come probably May, I'll write maybe 25 songs in the month of May, and I'll like about 10 of them. I'll keep those. But when the spotlight of the universe is on you, it just feels like you cannot miss. I touch the guitar and it's like song, 25 minutes, song, an hour, song, you know, like we're just cranking them out. But then when it leaves, I pick up the guitar and I'm like, I don't even know how to do this.
I don't deserve anything in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, but like when the spotlight is upon you, you better create, because the things start just coming. And it's, at least for me, that's exactly how I feel. And it's like timing, emotion, attitude, and I don't know, maybe some other shit that I'm not in tune with.
Yeah.
But all I know is when I feel it, it's like go time.
Yeah.
I read this book, and it's called, oh shit, I forget the name of it. I'll remember in a second. But it's talking about like your focus, and it's called Stolen Focus is the name of the book. And my focus is not the best today, obviously.
Slightly stolen.
And
Slightly stolen.
but it's talking about like getting in and out of like a flow state. Have you ever just sat down and started playing guitar and you look up at your clock and like 4 hours has gone by?
Oh yeah.
It's like there's ways to get into that, and you could practice that. Like I had
True.
like going to music college, it's like you have to practice practicing, because it's like you can just sit in a room for hours and just fuck around, and then is that someone's phone?
Yeah, that's the computer running on the
gotcha.
phone.
But it's like you can get into like a flow state, but if you're getting interrupted by things like texts and emails and shit like that, it's like then it takes you out, and then you don't have that spotlight of the universe.
True. But for me, there's also something to be said that like spotlight of the universe for me is also so based on seasons.
Interesting, like a macro version.
Yeah, because here's how my year goes. Typically, our off season is like November to the 1st of February.
Yeah.
In that time, I'm going to cut a record. I've done a record every year for the last 5 years. So in that time, I'm going to cut a record. Then in February, we go on tour. Then we have probably like small breaks somewhere in April. Maybe we're still touring, but it's like right now we're doing like the Weekend Warrior stuff, doing the Southeast. So doing that in spring, I have a couple days a week that I can write. I might get a couple songs. And then once we hit May to August is just tour. It's brutal. I mean,
Working.
just road dogging, tough. There's not a lot. There's a lot of ideas. There's not a lot of songs that are going to come out of it. I think last year from May to August, I came up with 120 song titles or ideas. I ended up getting 30 songs out of that. But I wrote all those 30 songs from August to December.
Perfect.
even in my life, like I'm not in the same creative sphere, but like even just silly things like making memes. Like if I'm not in the right headspace, it doesn't happen.
Well, to me though, it's the same thing. If you're gonna make something funny or make something serious, it's still creating. Like there's no. And a lot of times, you can hear this a lot with Bob Dylan stuff, which I love Bob Dylan so much. I know it's like some people are hit or miss on him, but I love Bob Dylan for this exact reason. Bob never, like he wrote thousands of songs, still writes songs, but you can hear the progression of getting to a good song with Bob because he puts out so many songs.
Yeah.
So you can hear like, oh, this song kind of sounds like Blown in the Wind. And then the next record is like, oh, this is kind of like Blown in the Wind. And then you get to Blown in the Wind. It's like, damn, that's a really good song. But you can hear him like writing to these huge monumental songs. And I think he just put out what he really liked and kept doing that and kept doing that. But I mean, when you write thousands and thousands of songs, like you're going to end up on something really good eventually. But you got to just keep creating and keep creating. Like there's no reason not to.
It's a muscle that you got to flex.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's weird to like talk about practicing being creative, but you can and do. I think so.
Well, for sure.
I mean, like in the Greeks thought like that gods would bestow like art onto people and
Spotlight
ideas.
of the universe.
Yes. And I'm in the camp of like you can just practice being creative. You know what I mean? It's like you can. How many bad songs did you write before you wrote a good one? You know, Paul McCartney says you got to write 1,000 bad songs to get to your first good one.
Yeah, I mean, I've written. Yeah, that was a big conversation when I very first got to Nashville. Is my label wanted me to have like 50 to 100 songs to cut a record, and I had 32, and I said, and we had to pick 16. This was for Western White Pines.
Great record.
And I said, I started 100 songs this year. I wrote 40. I like 32 of them. We got to pick 16. That's the motto.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to 100 shit songs. I want to listen to 30 good songs, and we're still going to have to cut out half of them. What's the problem there?
Yeah.
And what did they say to that?
They said, great.
Okay. Good. Right.
Good. Well, and that's
Sony,
the thing
we love
too.
you.
Yeah.
Sony, we do love you.
Everyone's creative processes are different. All they're trying to tell you is, hey, we've had success when we've had this happen. Right?
Oh, right. No, and I think, no, I love my label.
Yeah.
Like, Sony has been so good for me. And also I feel so thankful for them because they have dealt with me as well, because I am like just so 180 different from, I feel like, a lot of the acts, especially just because I was running everything on my own for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I don't really, like, as far as I'm talking about like my seasonal stuff and like how I like everything to run, I don't want that to change necessarily. Some things have changed though, and like way for the better, and some things have stayed the same for the better for those exact reasons. And I think the other thing is too, when I was learning all that stuff, doing like my crash course on the business, there's a lot of things that I was looking at going, I don't know if I think that I would do it that way. So I did it the other way, and that's kind of the reason why we got to come to Nashville. Some of those moves that we made that were a little bit against the grain actually were super helpful in us getting a phone call.
Yeah.
And me meeting you and like this whole thing happening. So those things have stayed the same. You know, being true to ourselves, understanding the process, believing in like what we do, and believing in the calls that we're making is 90% of the business strategy anyway. And Sony's been very down to play ball with that. And so it's been great to create with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about a label is like the resources that they have on staff is amazing. Right? Like,
oh, yeah.
They have folks that can do things and are proficient in things that we don't know a lot about. Now, you know more than a lot of folks did because you had been running it yourself, but that also helps you know when someone's good at the thing that they're doing or not.
Yeah, but the thing you don't know, at least that I didn't know, you don't know how deep the well is.
Yeah.
So you show up and you're like, oh, this is a pretty deep well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I went from being a one man with a band, like I was running everything with the band, to all of a sudden, you know, there's 30 people touching this project all of a sudden between everybody. And I'm like, wow, like I was way overworked. I mean, I didn't take a paycheck for 3 years, so I was definitely underpaid.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this is like it's crazy how many things you need to actually do something efficiently.
Yeah.
And like, because art is such a crazy thing. It's unfortunate that there is a business to art, but you have to have it obviously because it has to go that way. But it's nice for someone like me that now there's a lot of people on the business side as well as myself, and I have a lot more time to create and practice creating and doing XYZ.
Yep.
So, and be on the road for longer.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Just like, we're going on the stadium tour together, which
Right.
we should talk about in a minute. But
Yeah.
it's just like the amount of people it takes to put that show on, like just from our crew. It's,
Oh God.
I mean, it's just dozens and dozens of people. And then you go to the show and there's vendors and guys setting up the chairs and like security, and then people getting all the beer cans off the ground afterwards. And it's just like, it's insane. It's
Hundreds
Yeah.
of people. Dude, I
and
remember
drivers and
I mean, it's the very
banjo
first
players.
Luke show I ever went to. I believe it was in Dallas. Well, not as a fan. I've been to 2 Luke shows prior to even my music career.
Spokane, right?
Spokane, yeah. And then but my very first show, we did the tailgate in Dallas last year. You guys' very first show at AT&T.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember being able, like being a fly on the wall for that and being able to watch the behind the scenes for that. I was just like, holy shit. There are hundreds of people here to make sure this show goes on. Plus Luke, he puts so many people on the bill. So it's all of their crews, all of their buses, all of their everything, and it's just like, holy shit, this thing it's a machine, dude.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Luke Combs theme park there. Like
Yeah, it's like the Luke Combs Festival.
yeah, there's like Miller, like huge inflatable Miller lights, and there's like the bootlegger's car, and everyone's outside drinking and hanging out, and then you go into like the show, and then it's awesome.
I mean,
It's
you
so
got
much fun.
3 acts with the tailgate,
Yeah.
and then you have 5 acts inside.
So Dallas, Bailey Zimmerman was there that day?
Mm-mm.
Or was that? No, he was in Denver.
Yeah, no, he wasn't there that day.
That was the year before. Who else was there?
It was me, Jake Worthington, and who was the first one? It was
I don't remember.
Barack Obama.
It was Barack Obama.
No, it was
Charlie, look it up.
no. I have to look up her name, but we're gonna have to cut this out.
Yeah.
No, figure it out.
It's Jenna something.
Paulette.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna restage this. It was me, Jake Worthington, and Jenna Paulette.
Yep.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
And that's just
Yeah.
like out extra. That's just extra stuff out there. You ready to play a stadium show?
I can't believe that we're gonna get on.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it. I keep telling everybody, they're like, dude, stadiums. I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it.
I know. That's been your line.
I can't imagine it because we played 3 of those tailgates. I went to 3 of the shows last year, and I went to the Nashville one as a guest. And every time I was like, man, I can't wait till we get our shot. Because that was kind of my goal. Like, okay, I'm going to work for 2 years, probably get the shot, and then we'll go on the stadiums tour, maybe. But like, I told Cappy from the beginning, I was like, I will never expect a Luke show. Ever. Like, I don't think that...
Yeah, you've told me that, like, also. You said, like, I'd love to write with him if I deserve it. I'd love to open for him if I deserve it.
Yeah, and my biggest thing about this year, I don't even know if we deserve it, but we gotta ask to do it because I was thinking at least I was like 2025 maybe we could be considered, and then for sure I think by 2026 if we're still if people still listen to us, I think then we'll be ready to go. And I got the phone call in Denver. I missed the phone call in Denver.
Was it from Cappy? Who was calling?
It was
me?
from Cappy, and I missed the phone call. I was at this little bar with my friend. And so I called Jared, and I'm like, hey, I just missed a phone call from Cappy, blah, blah, blah. And
why don't you just call Cappy back?
I did, but he didn't answer. So then I called Jared, and
you're like,
then
"Am I fired?"
he's like, no, like, I'll call him. He's got to call you back, blah, blah, whatever. So I was just like in this. For a second, I'm like, am I getting fired?
Yes.
Are they going to cut me? Like, oh, my God, what the hell's going on? And then I get the call from Cappy the next morning, a lot of suspense. And he's like, you want to go on tour with Luke? And I just started crying. And it was like this whole thing. Because it's just really hard to imagine that. Because, I mean, dude, we're still playing like 500 cab clubs as a headliner and not selling out the 500 cab clubs. We're selling, we're doing okay, but we're building to that. It's just very hard for me to believe. I will say this. I got kind of a weird thing. This is a weird one. So when I was really struggling, this was kind of in the midst of everything. This is probably right before you kind of made the introduction to Jared for me.
Which is sick, by the way.
Oh, yeah. It's probably like 4 or 5 months prior to this, though.
What year was this?
Oh, God. This would have been 2020.
Either 2020 or early 2021, right?
Well, no, because you didn't introduce me to Jared until, was it 2024 right now? It would have been like summer of 2021 or 2022, I guess. Yeah, okay. Somewhere in there. And I remember just being like, I'm so stressed. It's growing, and I don't have any help. I'm growing out. Like, it's outgrowing me, and now it's just running away. And then eventually, if I can't keep up with it, it's just going to have a huge pullback, and that's going to be the end.
Yeah.
And mind you, I'm not making any money. I mean, I've had my guys on salary for a long time, so every money that was coming in, I was paying out.
Yeah.
And I was paying for all the records, and I owed Sonic Ranch a shit ton of money. I just had nothing. So I was very stressed out. And I would have this reoccurring dream that I was opening for Luke Combs, and Luke would come up to me and be like, "Hey man, blah blah blah," and like give me a hug, and he would talk to me, and he would be like, "I love your music." And I would be like, this is so amazing. And I'd wake up and just start crying because my life was so shitty. I mean, it wasn't so shitty, but it just like, stress. I woke up with just, stress. And I had, I shouldn't say it was shitty because I had a roof over my head. I had good friends. I had a girlfriend. Like, I had my family living next door. Like, it was fine. But my career was looking in a path of tanking. And I was looking at a path of, like, unsustainability. Mm-hmm. So I'd wake up and just, like, cry and be like, this is so terrible. This is the worst. And then when we were in Kansas City and I was talking to Luke at the Arrowhead Stadium, that was like, that room and that whole thing was like from my dream. Yeah. And Luke's like, no, dude, I listened to your record. It's really good. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, you did not. And he got, because I actually said that to him, and he was like, yes, I did. Like, he got kind of pissed. But I was just like, dude, this is insane. And then now we're going to actually get to go and do these shows. And so there's just something in the ether about that whole situation that I'm not really, that's way over my pay grade, but there's something in that that's incredible.
Yeah.
You deserve it, man. Absolutely. I mean, you're being humble, and I appreciate that. And we're all noting it, but you absolutely do deserve to come open the shows, 100%.
Well, thank you. I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, you're gonna crush. It's gonna be great.
Duh.
Bow.
Yeah. So I remember the first time I played a stadium show. It was like for CMA Fest before we did those runs, and I was fucking scared, dude, for sure. And I felt my hand like I was like, here we go. And then, like, we walk out on stage, and you just look up everywhere, and there's all these phones and the lights and everything. And you're like, do I have the ability to do this? I don't know. We'll find out. And then Jake's like, 1, 2, 3. And then we're like, all right, I guess we'll find out right now. You're going to crush it, dude. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Once again, like, you're only as good as you are today. So we'll see how see how they go. I think it'll be fine.
No, it's gonna be sick as fuck.
We don't have enough. We don't have enough time to mess it up. It's kind of what I've been thinking. It's like,
how many songs do you think you're gonna play? You're gonna have a shorter set because you're.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to get 4 in.
4 songs.
4 or 5.
4 or 5. 5 is good.
5. I mean, we're gonna push it. Like, we wanted to be. If we got 25, we're playing to 25.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get 4 or 5, depending on how long we want to play a Fire of the Devil. Sometimes we can make that a 7-minute song to 10, but
gotta play the hits.
Yeah, gotta play the hits. But I don't know. We're gonna add, like, as we have some new stuff coming out, we're gonna be adding new songs to the set as well. So I'd love to get 5 because, once this new record comes out, I'll have 66 songs out. So trying to pick 5 songs is kind of like.
Should we pick it right now or?
pick the set. I can guarantee it's going to be Western White Pines, If I Were the Devil, Dying Breed, or When I See You Again. That'll be a swing probably.
Yep.
And then
audible spot there.
Hopefully a new one. So, like, I don't know. But if we didn't have a new one, it would be When I See You Again, Dying Breed, Devil, Western White Pines, and then probably we could go with like a shorter one, like Start in the Morning, or I would maybe even go like Boy and a Bird Dog or something like that.
You gotta play Boy and Bird. I feel like it's like 2.5 minutes. It's perfect.
Yeah, I know, but so is Start in the Morning.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, like we have some swings on there, and I do think like we want to play some different sets. And
yeah. We're playing different sets every night.
But that is one thing that comes back to like the freedom of kind of being off the click for us as well. Because I don't know, like we could get the pad and do the click live situation, which is kind of something we talked about. And I know that playing in the stadiums is way different as far as like timing. It's going to feel very strange.
I love playing with the click in the stadium because when you're out on the thrust and you hear that ridiculous PA and it's delayed from what's going on in your ears, sometimes I'm just like, all right, I got to play the guitar solo on, Hannaford Road or something. So I'm going to run all the way out on the thrust and all the way to the very end. And I hear the PA, but it's like, delayed. It takes time for air to move and get wiggly.
Right.
So I just crank my ear pack up and I just hear that click and I'm just like, I just zone in on that click and it's like ding, 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 ding in my ears. I'm like, I play the solo. I'm like, okay. Then I turn it back down so I don't ruin my hearing forever and then run back on stage and like get up and jam,
Right. I mean, this has been told to me a million times where they're like, you got to do click. And we're thinking about doing click, but at the same time.
Well, it just depends, I think, whatever. Zeppelin played stadiums and they didn't use a click.
Yeah.
Right, but being in-ears versus wedges, that's where I think it's a lot different. And I'm going to have a mic on the thrust, so I'm going to be like, boom, go out there for one or two.
Yeah.
But the push and pull of it is obviously like the loose of the live show, the freedom of the live show versus the technicality of having the click.
It's nice to have a unique experience at every show, I feel like,
True. I also am it's very hard for me. I don't like anything tonal. So if there's going to be a click in my ear, it cannot have a pitch.
Of course.
The click has to be like a sandbag or something.
A sandbag?
Like, it just has to be like...
Yeah, for sure.
It can't be like ding, ding, ding.
Right, yeah, of course, yeah.
Because that's why we had to like switch the talkback. We used to have like just a universal talkback that Eric would talk into.
Can't have that.
Yeah, no, I'm like, dude, you can't be talking in D while we're singing in B flat. It's just not going to swing.
We used to have that where the talkback went to everyone, and sometimes Luke would be introing a song, and someone would be talking in it, and then later on he's like, "You guys gotta shut the fuck up when I'm trying to talk." Like,
yeah, dude. But now we like Eric has 3. We're adding another talkback though, a universal talkback for everybody.
So I have a mic that right next to my steel. I don't sing in the show, thank God. But if I lean over and talk to it, it's got an optigate on it, so the mic essentially turns on when I get close to it, and when I speak, it goes to all the text.
Yeah.
So if my guitar string breaks, I say, "Evan, you're the best guitar tech in the world, which is the truth. Please come help me." And he'd be like, "Okay, cool." Then I have a button. If I push that, and the talkback only goes to the band.
Right.
So I can be like, "Hey, my string's broken. Someone cover the fills in the second verse or something." And then I can talk to my guitar tech without it being in Jake's ear when he's trying to keep time or when someone's trying to sing or whatever.
Right.
Makes sense.
Behind the scenes.
The talkback is very important, and it's if you ever see a guy talking into a microphone and you go, "We can't hear you," trust me, he's just talking to the band.
He's just talking to his buds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so fucking stoked for this year. It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be very fun.
We're gonna play a stadium show together on Saturday, and then we're gonna be home on Sunday.
Maybe.
Well, I will be.
Yeah, you'll be home on Sunday. I'll be somewhere
in
else.
The van, yeah.
I'll be playing.
Yeah.
So we talked about the stadium tour. Let's talk about what other road stuff you have going on for this year too.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to branch out a little bit more. I mean, as far as like trying to do our own headlining stuff, and so a lot of like May, June, July, August, September. It's definitely we're gonna add more and more headlining stuff as we get closer to the fall. But besides being a good songwriter, a well listened to recording artist, the biggest one for me is I want to sell hard ticket. We work really hard to put on a really good live show. And we have a lot of fun, and like really we built the whole thing from being a bar band. I feel like, we are like the classic road dog boys. We've been road dogging for a long time, and we're definitely one of the younger acts that is a road dog band. There's not too many of those around anymore. So we really Right, and then you got to build your live show, but you already got the hard ticket, which is a crazy phenomenon that I think is actually pretty cool. I mean, I wish that could, for me, that would be amazing.
Yep.
But once again, we just want to work on selling our hard ticket, and I probably would say we're going to be leaning towards some kind of a headlining tour in the fall, I would imagine.
Cool.
And just kind of see how it plays out.
I'm free then. Nick, check your schedule. Nick and I will come.
Yeah.
And I'll drink your beers and
Hell
have a
yeah,
time.
dude. I love all those things.
I'll hang out in your green room and it would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. You can just do whatever you want.
Get on the van.
Yeah,
oh,
dude, we can
van
play-
tour. Van pod.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you got to play D&D though.
I'm down.
It's okay. We're moving up to a sprinter this year.
Hell yeah, dude. Congrats.
Hopefully, yeah.
I'm more of a Magic guy just because D&D is so long.
Yeah.
I like Pathfinder.
I love me some D&D, man. For
Same.
sure.
Big time D&D fan. It's definitely something like, I mean, I'm such a nerd. It's
Yeah.
D&D. Like, I love playing Elden Ring. I love Baldur's Gate. I love Lord of the Rings.
Yep, same.
Like all
We
Fortnite.
watched Lord of the Rings.
No.
at your place.
Fortnite. Such a nerd.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the plan of the new stuff. You
Okay.
ready? Are we
Yes.
ready to do this?
Yeah.
I mean, Western White Pines, that was a great record.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I absolutely love Western White Pines. Great record. I remember
Great record.
I remember hearing Boy and a Bird Dog first time too, and just like how different it is. And
Right.
I love that too. That like you're not afraid to like do things that sound a little bit different. And that song's super catchy, but like it's just not what you would expect almost. You know?
Right. I would say it is super catchy, but
Yeah.
it's like it's catchy in a non-commercial way.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I have to give a ton of credit to my producer Eddie Spear. Like
Yeah.
he thinks so outside the box. He works so well. I mean, we work really, really well together. And I think as an artist, I am not afraid of doing something very different not for Mass Effect, but to do it to create. I think it's, for me, I'm not conceited enough to believe that if I produce a song the way that I think other people want to hear it, that will bring me a lot of success and fame. I think a good song is a good song, and I think a good song is a good song with just an acoustic and a vocal, But everything after that is just like, how far can we stretch this song? Where does this elastic band want to go? And Eddie is the guy that will stretch the band with me, you know?
I mean, that record's great. This new one's different, and I think when Nick and I listened to it, he was like, this new record is just smashes the last one. It does.
Yeah, that was our goal. I mean, I remember talking to Eddie, and he's like, you know how hard it's going to be to beat Western White Pines? Like, that's a great record. He's like, I'm very proud of that record. So we're going to have to do something pretty drastic to beat it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, let's go. And so some of the stuff we were referencing was like Sheryl Crow's self-produced record that she won. I believe she won a Grammy for it, like in the 90s. That first one that was kind of like a cross between rock and country, and just like very outside the box. And we even referenced, I've been a huge fan of Eric Church for a long time in my life, and he was the same way. He was very different for a long time. Still is very different.
I think that generally Western White Pines was cut in a way that it was very much like a live record.
Yes. Yeah.
And the production on the new record, it was the way Eddie approached it. I've never seen anyone really make a record that way before.
Yeah.
So if you think how's a record made, maybe you get you and the boys in a recording studio, you run the song down, you get the band, then you go over and you add the vocal, you get a vocal take. If that's just like a very generic way of doing it. The way that Eddie and Colby did this new record was to me, it was very strange, and it was very inspiring, and it just really worked. But it seemed like you guys kind of started, the pre-production was get the drums first and the vocals. So it was like the record was like the drums and the vocals were done basically first, and then you added, right? Wasn't that
yes
kinda
and no.
how-
So the pre-production was, we got drums. We did, Eddie brought in a drummer, and he did, like, all he had was my work tapes, because I don't do demos. So it was just like, okay, here's the song. with me singing it on my acoustic through an iPhone.
In that one finger picking pattern that you
Yeah.
always use.
Yeah, because here's the other thing. Eddie does so many reharms and so many like re-rhythms and stuff.
Yep.
I know that I can just focus on melody and words. And like I can, stretch these chord progressions, but like I don't need to focus I don't need to think in production. Because I know that the guy that I work with is going to definitely take care of me on that.
That's great.
So, but he brought in a drummer and we did live drum loops.
Right.
Which are not the final drums, but we built, like in pre-production, we just kind of built these little demos to get the vocal over. And then we had final vocal done, most of the final vocals done by the time we got into studio to cut the record.
Which is like ass backwards.
100%. But it was the easiest, I shouldn't say it was easy, but it was, by the time we got in the studio, I didn't feel like we were wasting a bunch of time on me doing vocal takes. Because like you don't need the studio to do vocal takes. You need the studio for like the big drum sounds and like those amp rooms and all these other, the instrumentation part of it is what you really need it for. Mm-hmm. And I can actually sit back and just be like, yes, no, this is good. Like, oh, here's an idea. I don't have to worry about me singing the high note on a song,
Yeah, it's like you had already finished your work.
Right.
And working with Eddie was a trip, man.
Genius.
And he's great. And I'll just say, just to nerd out a little bit musically about it, was I played on your record.
Correct.
Just to say that. And
that is correct.
This is very cool. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I'm like, don't do this as a favor to me because we're friends, but I will do this as a favor to you.
No, I had you on because you're good.
But so there's one song. It's like we go through and overdub everything and get the parts, and I'm like, cool, we got it. And then Eddie's like, all right, now I want you to do the whole thing in one pass, and I want it to feel like a live performance. I've never done that before. Like a lot of times when I work with producers, it's like you just throw a bunch of shit at the wall, and then they come through it later.
Right.
And then with Eddie, it's like him and I worked together to compose this dobro part. And it was like we tweaked everything, we recorded it, and we got it to where it was like, this is how you play dobro on this song. This is the part.
Right.
And it felt like we were like writing together,
Yeah.
And then instead of just comping it, we just went through and just retracked it as like one pass.
Yeah, the thing about Eddie, and I tell people this a lot, where it's like, unless, and I don't mean this by any bad means or anything, but it's like, Eddie wants everything to be the best it can possibly be. It has to be 10 out of 10. There is no 9.9 out of 10. Everything that he wants to put out or do is 10 out of 10. So there's a lot of pushing.
I loved it.
But what I'm saying is like he's not for everybody because he is going to tell you straight up. He's not going to mince words. He's going to be like, well, I don't think this song is very good. That's starting for me. Or I'll sing a vocal line. He'll go, again. I'll sing again. And it's like, a segment that's like 2 words, and he's like, again. Like, God damn it. Like, think about this. And he'll be like, da 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 da. That's what you got to do. It's just like da da. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
But then you get it, man.
But then you get it. And like, it's so much pushing to create the 10 out of 10 level thing. And I don't want to make him sound like he's like crazy and like he's like Stalin and pushing me super hard. But he is looking for like the best product because at the end of the day, like that's what you're trying to do there. You're trying to capture lightning in a bottle. So then when you do get it, he's like, all right, one take, let's go. And you rip it and it's just like, oh, this is amazing. And you feel so good afterwards.
Oh yeah. It's a great learning experience for me. It's always working with a new producer is always a little weird and different and stuff, but I loved it, man. I'm so proud of this record. I can't wait to come out. I was telling Colby in the car, I'm like, I want this record to be out right now so I could brag about that I got to be involved with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's so sick, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well dive into it a little bit.
Yeah, what's the name of the record first?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
We've just been over here just geeking out on music stuff.
I love it, though.
It's a music podcast,
Yeah,
right? We could do that.
So the record is going to be called American Sun. And I think, the song that people normally find me with is If I Were the Devil. So I've kind of, which is a controversial song, kind of. I've been told it is sometimes. So I've been known to, I guess, touch on deeper topics is, I guess, kind of what I'm trying to say here. I have a lot of lighthearted stuff as well, but I definitely have a lot of songs that are like, hey, look at all these systemic problems, yo. I mean, once again, I love Bob Dylan and I love people, I love songs that are talking, I love systemic songs. I love State of the Union songs. I love songs that make you think about who you are, what you're going to be, like what is this world that we're living in? How small can a song make you feel in the biggest way possible? And so a lot of the writing for this record is kind of like that. Not to mention, I mean, this year I was touring a lot. My dad was sick. So I had stress, family problems, blah, 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 blah down the road. There was a lot of emotional things that went in to this record for me. I think the writing is the strongest writing I've ever had for all 16 songs. Well, 15, one's a cover. But for all 15 songs that I wrote as well as wrote with other people, I think it's very strong. And I think, the title track, American Sun, is a song that I actually kind of came up with. I had met with Eddie for a little bit of pre-production, and I had a ton of songs, but we didn't have American Sun yet. And Eddie was kind of like, hey, we need a song that's kind of like Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan. Can you just write that? And this is Eddie though, to a T, so casually. Hey, go home and write Times They Are A-Changin'. And I'm like, Jesus. Because I keep a list of 100 songs I wish I would have wrote. That song's number 5. Mm-hmm. So
I want to hear more about this list.
Oh, I got a list.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Save it for the pod.
I'm just kind of like...
Oh, shit, we are on the podcast.
But I'm kind of like, okay, I'll go home and write this, like, Times They Are A-Changin' song. And so I go home, and I'm staying in an Airbnb, which is my friend's, like, ADU unit. It's during Christmas, so there's a lot of shit to unpack there as well. And I'm just kind of going through it. But one thing I was doing is I was going and spending time, 6 to 8 to 10 hours with my dad every day. And my mom would be going out doing stuff. And my dad had, like, a respiratory disease. And so he was just on oxygen pretty much in a chair all day. And so I would just spend time with him, and we just talk about a bunch of shit. One thing we talked a ton about was the world that we're living in, where it's going, where it's been. We just talked a lot about life in general. And the big consensus that my dad and I kind of got away from, or took away from it, that I took away from it for sure, was that, it's not going anywhere great right now. Like, I do truly believe that this world it's messed up bad right now. We did a lot of bad things to it, and we're continuing to do that. So, and this is not a political thing either. It's not it's a human thing. It's a humanity thing. I mean, people are so caught up with, trying to be right that they're missing the point. But that's kind of what I took away from it. So I came up with the song American Sun, and it wrote itself in 25 minutes. I mean, it was like crazy.
Spotlight of the Universe.
Spotlight of the Universe was definitely upon me at that point. And what triggered it actually is I was watching this Vietnam documentary later, like a couple days later, and on one of the soldiers' helmets in Vietnam, it said, "War is good for business, invest your son." And so one of the lines in the song is, Uncle Sam's whispering, "World War is coming on, but war is good for business, please invest your only son." That's kind of what I started with, and then kind of rolled it from there. But basically the song is just talking about, it begs the question of, oh, my American son, who will you become? What are we going to do? How are we going to fix things? Where are we going with this? And also pointing out the obvious stuff of like, hey, maybe we're doing the wrong thing. Maybe these things don't matter as much as we think that they do. So that kind of sets up the record, I think, really, really well. There's 4 major themes in the record, and that is State of the Union, which is we just talked about.
Right. Yep.
And then it's mental health. Mental health for me is so massive. I've probably it's really quick, just touch on this. For me, I feel suicide has plagued my life. It has been in my life a long time, and there's something about the Northwest. I don't know what it is, but it's a problem up there for sure. I've probably had 15 of my friends commit suicide in my life.
Yeah, I've lost people as well.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah.
And it's it's been around a lot, and I'm tired of not saying shit about it, and I'm tired of everyone just ignoring it. So we have a whole section of the record that is based on mental health. And then we have a whole section of the record. The next theme is going to be hope, because I think coming off of those two, you got to have something that's like, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel here. Like there is something that we can go towards. There is a better thing. So there's hope, and then to top it all off, we got love. And love is like a very general term there. It's everything that encapsulates like just being kind to one another and like making sure that that's kind of the solution to get where we want to go. And with the 4 major themes, we also kind of broke it down. I'm not a big genre guy. When this record, you know, as you guys know, is pretty genre fluid.
Yeah.
But we kind of cross-referenced. We kind of have something from every era, I would say. But the major theme overall lapping is kind of crossing decades of rock and roll with just in general my sound, which is country-ish.
Yeah, it's country.
Yeah. I think if I sing over anything, they're going to be like, that's country.
Yeah.
So, but not having country as your major theme or your major genre that you're looking at. We're looking at, 90s alternative rock crossing it with country. We're looking at
Weezer.
Yeah. Weezer.
Elton John.
Pink Floyd. Yeah. Nice.
Dude,
yeah.
totally.
And those are the kind of moves that we're doing. It's crossing Bob Dylan with Colby Acuff.
Yeah.
It's crossing the Beatles with the country Colby Acuff sound and making everything very unique and super, super like concise. And we want to make sure that it has purpose.
Yeah.
But
what you're doing by crossing those things over is you're changing what Colby Acuff is. You're making it all of those things.
I mean, at least for me, what I take away from the record, I think this is a bold statement, but I don't really know how else to say it. I love thinking of this record as a record that could be a genre-defining record. I love thinking of this record as something that's planting a flag of sonically of like, oh yeah, this is something that you can do. This is something that we did, and this is how you do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good part of it too. Is like one of the things I always say about Eric Church is Eric Church is way more interested in moving the needle 1% or a fraction of a percent than he is of giving you exactly what you thought you were going to get.
Exactly.
And I think I see a lot of that in this record.
There was a one night really late in the studio. It was the night that it snowed. The very first night that it snowed, Eddie and I were, I wouldn't say we were trapped in the studio because we drove home later in the snow, but we didn't really feel the need to get out on the road anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And so we were just talking about a lot of things. And one thing that came up, which Eddie had told me that he had told this to multiple other artists that felt a similar way about a record that he'd done with Eddie, but he's like, this is the one, like this is the story that I love to talk about. And because I kind of came up with this, like, all of a sudden I was in this headspace of like, well, what if no one cares about this record? And he was like, well, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Because you create to create. And you never want to get in a situation where you're thinking of when you're going to be celebrated as an artist. So tedious on your mental health. Yeah. And the story goes like this. There was a little painter in France named Van Gogh. And he lived above this coffee shop. And he was painting, doing like, Starry Night and all this crazy shit that he was doing.
Well, Starry Night was painted in a mental hospital, but his other paintings were done there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Just small clarification.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Don't check me on the history here. I'm just telling the story. But yeah, anyway, so he can't sell any paintings in this coffee shop that he's living above. And I can't remember the guy who was living in France at the time, I believe, but he was doing really well as a painter, and he was Van Gogh's friend. And Van Gogh sent him a letter and was like, hey, man, I'm doing something really cool. I think it's super interesting, and I think it's kind of, it's going to maybe define art. And I think it's very interesting. Is there any way you could help me? Or maybe we could do something together, just anything. He's like, I'm really struggling right now. And the guy was like, no. I don't even know who that guy, can't remember his name. But he was celebrated in the now. and now no one knows who he is. And a week later, after Van Gogh got that letter, he killed himself. And now he's one of the most celebrated artists of all time. My point is, you create to create. You cannot know when you're going to be celebrated as an artist, but that's not the point. The point is you have to put stuff out in the world, because whether it's today, tomorrow, or after your time, maybe eventually you will be celebrated. And that is the point of creating.
Yeah, that's art.
Yeah, and that's what like really stuck with me. You know, once Eddie told me that, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Like, let's make this record. Like,
Hell yeah, dude.
yeah.
Well, and I think that tells you a lot about Eddie too, because he gets that
Oh,
thing.
my God.
You know, and I have never met him extensively. I've just in passing, but I can tell that there's sometimes where you meet people and you understand that your brain doesn't work the same way theirs does. And I knew that from Eddie the moment I said hello to him. I was like, okay, this guy's brain functions in a different way than my brain functions.
Yeah, he fires on about 100 cylinders where
Yeah.
everybody else is sitting on 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see folks like that, and of course have seen them throughout my life and throughout my regular career in logistics, sales, everything I've done. But you see it here way more than you see it anywhere else.
Oh yeah, I mean the people here. I mean, I noticed that as soon as I got here. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah,
everybody is very good,
Yeah.
yeah.
and I'm just a little boy from Idaho. Like, okay.
No, but it's just one of those things where greatness can come in any form, right?
Oh yeah.
But being able to consistently produce greatness is not common.
Right, but there's a something to be said about that.
Yeah.
Because, who was I talking to the other day? I had to write, and that kind of came up of being like, oh, I just feel this stress and this level to constantly have this output of 100. Like, I got to be batting 1,000 all the time. Well, we all know if you want to be in the MLB Hall of Fame, you only got to bat 330
Yeah.
for a career. So
Yep.
that means you only have to have 3.3 out of 10 overall. That is easy. I could, not easy, but like, if you think about it in that, I'm batting over my weight for sure.
Well, it helps when a lot of those hits are home runs.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. But like, how many of those home runs do you need
Yep.
out of at bats?
Yep.
There's really, I do say this a lot too. We're on the road. So my tour manager and then my keys player is also my production manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always say like, okay, Eric's the production manager.
We love
I'm
you,
like,
Eric.
yeah, Eric's the best. Like, if Eric is stressed out, we probably have a show. It's fine. If Beavers is stressed out, it's probably going to come to me, and it's probably going to be fine. If I'm stressed out or worried, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, we just try to keep it, low, because I know that even if we miss, even if I strike out, I'm going to get the next at bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your on base percentage plus slugging?
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty. I'd say it's way better than it should be.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a live performance now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's way better than it should be. I think we've gotten super lucky, and we've made some great friends, and like the overall network that has become like my Nashville family so quickly too. That was one thing my dad was so shocked about. I'm very sad that he couldn't ever come down here and see everything, but he was just like, how do you know all these people already? Like, how have you already built this? I'm like, they literally let me in. I fooled everybody. Like, it was the world's best
not fooling.
Houdini magic trick of all
I'm
time. I was
rolling
like,
my eyes so hard right now.
Yeah.
but still, I moved to Nashville a year ago.
Wait, what? Has it only been a year?
I moved, a year and change. I moved to Nashville January 6th.
Yep.
I met you guys prior to that because I was going back and forth.
Right.
But we moved into that band house January 6th. Like, I have not been here for very long. And people
it feels
have,
like I've known you like forever.
I know, it's because we live next door and
Oh,
spend
yeah.
every day together.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember when you guys like hung out on the boat, and he was like, "Dude, I got to hang with Colby Acuff." I'm like, "The best, right?" And he's like, "Yes, the best." Yeah. It was when you guys were on the cruise.
Oh, I know, but that cruise is also one of those things where like all of a sudden it was so solidified of like, oh yeah, no, this is like a great experience to create in, a great experience to work in. Like, I just cannot believe how healthy it is. And I know that there's some stuff out there, because you do see it. There's other situations in Nashville that are not like that.
Yeah. There
And
are
I
a
got-
lot of situations.
Oh, I got so lucky. I really can't explain how thankful I am for, I mean, you guys, especially the Make Wake management, my Sony, my team there, just like everybody that I've got to work with has actually just been so kind and so good to me and let me in. That's such a big thing for me when they don't, nobody owed me anything. So it's, I mean, that experience alone is pretty incredible.
Well, it's because it's easy to let you in because you're thoughtful, you're genuine, you're kind, and you're really fucking good, dude.
Yeah, your music's great too. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
Man.
of course. All right, so more about the record.
Correct.
Do you have some tracks that you want to talk about on it?
Yeah, let's dive in. I got a couple I'd love to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing about this record, everything is kind of like in these 4 themes, these 4 genres, and we're also going to try to do it in 4 parts. So one thing that is hindering, I believe, a lot of music nowadays is the fact that people's attention span is so low.
Yeah.
It's so low to the point where like, and also so saturated. So like you have people just cannot get through the amount of shit that they need to get through. Like it's 16 songs is the record. If I put out 16 songs, the 16th song is going to get nothing. And the first song is going to probably get all the love. The second, maybe up to the 5th. Your A side is going to get a lot. But you see it die immediately. Around, so like your track 8 is screwed. Track 8 might as well just be nothing. Just white noise. No one's going to know. So for me, it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, okay, I'm tired of playing this game of like, oh, is it good enough? Can I get enough press? Well, what's our budget to make sure that the marketing is going to be there? Well, the problem is everybody's doing the same thing. There's 100,000 songs a day put on Spotify.
Is that a real number or is it?
I saw it last year. And there's more music put out today than ever.
Yeah.
So like it's so saturated and every day something new can happen, which is the most amazing part of music nowadays, but it's the hardest part of being a recording artist. Is like, tomorrow somebody that we don't know could blow up on TikTok out of the blue. Boom, there it is. And that's a great thing. It could be me. You never know. Like seriously, it's equal opportunity when it comes to that, which I think is amazing. But I'm going to try and also hedge my bet a little bit and do something different for the consumer. From me as an artist, not just making TikToks. I'm going to do something that's an experience for someone as a listener. Mm-hmm. So how we're going to do it is I'm going to put it out in at least 2 EPs then a record or 3 EPs then the record. But I'm going to give it to people in consumable chunks. So the first EP, the very first single, I think right now is going to be a song called Scared of the Dark, which when I wrote it is a song that originally it was titled Personified Depression. So it's a mental health song. It talks about, it starts with something very small, like, I'm just a thought. I'm a dark place in your mind, blah, blah, blah. It's just like this very small thing that blooms into something very terrible for people. And the chorus is all about like, let me help you. I've been there. Let me show you and tell you that it's okay to feel this way, but this is the way out, we got to get to the light. And I think, and it doesn't mince any words. I do think it does really hit the nail on the head for what that feels like, lyrically, especially. And then the last verse is about the small voice in your head that is actually help and reaching out and going through that process of like getting out of whatever hellhole you're in.
Yeah.
And so that'll kind of be our lead single. And then we'll build the EPs kind of accordingly. There's another song on the record called Better Days.
It's the best song you've ever written.
I do love this song as well. It'll be our second single for sure. That came from Eddie as well. This is before he wanted Times Are Changing. He was like, hey man, can you go home and write Imagine by John Lennon? And I was like,
sure.
Are you fucking kidding me? Imagine? Like, okay. So I go home and Kurt actually showed me this little chord progression and I was like, this is really cool. I can hear where this is going. I think this will fit this really well. I wrote the song with Colton Venner.
Who's
Love Colton.
amazing.
I love Colton. Colton was one of the very first guys to ever call me. He called me when I dropped my very first record when he was still working at the T-shirt company. He's like, "If you ever make it to Nashville, let me know, man." And then we wrote this song, and this thing is such a monster.
Also used to be your neighbor.
Also, he still lives very close.
Yeah.
But the song is just an absolute monster. I mean, and I do think it is the best song I've ever written.
I literally do think that.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, it's so strong, and it truly is. It begs the question of like, how do we treat each other? And if today was the last day, and you had to pass judgment on not just yourself but the entirety of humanity, how would you feel?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you think that we've done the worst at? What is the thing that you think we've done the best at? Begs the question of, are we getting further from better days? Now, the further from better days thing, I do want to also clarify. I'm not justifying that the past was good. The point is, we're supposed to be going forward in a way that is good.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be pushing forward for like the betterment of the planet and humanity, and like, where do we want to be? And the question is, are we stagnant? Are we going backwards faster than we're going forwards? How can we get forward? Once again, it's kind of one of those make you think songs.
Yeah.
But it's very, very special to me. I'm just like, so cannot wait to get it out. But yeah, we also got some features on the record. We got the Castellos on a song that I love. It's another mental health song. It's also a song that I kind of wrote. My dad being sick played a lot into this song, and it's called How Do I Feel Alive? And because my dad had like a respiratory thing, there was...
Oh, wow. I'm just not putting that together.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Whoa. That just changed that whole song for me. Dude, that's crazy.
But it is a bop.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it's an absolute
it
jam.
rocks so hard.
Yeah, because it is kind of like an upbeat song. But it's kind of like he couldn't... Coupled with the fact that he couldn't get out and stuff, there was a lot of depression and a lot of mental stuff that came with it. And so the song is really about, for anybody who has gone through that, it's for anybody who has gone through like the loss of somebody and had to, walk through those steps. But the thing is that I had to write with the Castellos that day, and I wrote the chorus in the morning, and then I showed them the chorus. We wrote the song together. I thought it'd be great to feature them on it, so we brought them in on it. The song turned out incredible. It's very different than I think a lot of people... it's very much like alternative rock cross country. Like, but it means a lot to me. It's a smash. We have the Castellos on it. Like, the whole thing is, I really, really love that. That'll be the first track in the second EP, so it'll be like our first single going into that. Yeah. The other feature that we have is a guy by the name of Elliot Greer. He is from the UK, lives in New York. He is a phenomenal singer. I'm a huge fan of his. And we have a song that's kind of like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, 3-part harmony through the entire thing. And that is, it's called Man in the Paper Mask, which is actually a song that I wrote for Eddie Spear himself. It's about kind of his seeing the world through his lens. And I'm really excited for that one as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool too, and I'm assuming it changes all the time, like hearing the songs that mean the most to the artist once they create them,
Right, yeah.
And I'm sure, like I said, like, when you ask an artist what their favorite song of theirs is, that's always probably a moving scale and changing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think as a writer, that's what I'm always going to gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Because there's like songs that I like playing live more than I like, so and so forth. But for me, it's just like when I listen to my own song and I go, that's good writing.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
When I impress myself with my writing, that's when I feel good about being an artist.
What about like the visual side of the record? Like,
yeah, for sure. I haven't thought, we're just kind of now diving into some of that stuff, but I definitely wanted to feel for like most of the songs, I want them visually, because like Western White Pines, the vision was so easy for me.
Yeah.
It was like, we're just going to go to
Home.
Idaho.
Yeah.
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 But one thing that Western White Pines didn't have, which is not a problem, I still stand by my writing in Western White Pines, but it didn't have these like intense topics that we're talking about in these things. So I do think visually it's going to be like pretty much like, I think it's going to be way more tapered down.
Yeah.
Visually, it's not going to be these like huge mountaintops and all this crazy stuff. We might have a few songs that are like that. Sorry. But I do think some of the stuff is also just going to be like a chair in a dark warehouse with one light.
Yeah.
You mean you're talking about for like album art, for music videos, for all that content?
Well,
stuff?
yeah, I mean, visually, and then also for like album art, I'm kind of playing with a couple different things. I have a bunch of like pictures of me as like a toddler that I'm playing around with, maybe as being album art, because I can do two. Like, you can go two different ways with this. Obviously, I mean, I can go real insane with this
Yeah.
if I wanted to.
I'm thinking of all this weird shit they can do.
Right. Well, one thing that I really loved, one thing that kind of gave me inspiration is I'm a big fan of Peaky Blinders. And there's one scene where they have this dude like tied up to a chair. It's just like this old guy, and like they're going to interrogate him. And Thomas Shelby walks in, and there's like this really cool shot that you do. It's like a wide shot, and they're sitting in this basement, and there's like only lights coming from just like these little window well lights. And this old guy is sitting in the chair, and he's naked. He just looks, kind of old.
And naked, yeah.
Yeah, and Tommy Shelby's all dressed up, being like the young guy, and he's like pointing in his face. And I like paused the show, and I was like, dude, that is American Son. That is like, hey, listen to me. And they're like, no. My hands are tied. That to me is, it's the way it is because it's the way it is. Because we built it that way. We like it this way. And I have nothing wrong with like the older generation stuff, I mean, once again, like my dad was a boomer, he was part of all that whole thing. But he was the first one to admit that he messed up, like they messed up the world for us. And that is American Son. It's like we as a generation and generations to come are walking into a shitstorm right now. You need to listen to us. But I do think the more kind-hearted one to do is, and maybe a little bit more lighthearted, is to have me as a toddler.
Yeah.
Just kind of walking around. There's one photo I love. It's me walking in the snow with my back turned to the camera, and I'm like, yay big. And I love that one for some reason, but yeah, we're just kind of playing with the ideas right now.
So we're not going to Tom's and shooting the album cover there on this record.
No, unfortunately not.
But we still want to go to Tom's.
Yes.
We can go to Tom's.
Is there some way that like Sony can pay for us to go get drunk there?
Probably not.
Is that recoupable?
That's what we call recoupable. Yeah.
That's okay.
We'd just be paying it out of Colby's money.
It's okay. I'm the king. I'm the king of recoupable.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Well, that's another cool thing too that you can kind of play off of. I mean, maybe when you drop the limited edition vinyl, you can have the Peaky Blinders cover on it.
Oh, dude. I mean,
Oh
yeah. I'm such a fan of Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so happy he won. I've seen Oppenheimer 3 times. I'm obsessed with it. I'm also like, outside of music, because I've always made hobbies careers. Terrible.
Same.
Yeah, but I'm just, that's
if you
what I
hate
do.
money, that's the way to do it.
Right, exactly. No, I say that. But like my other hobbies that are like, these are truly hobbies.
Yeah.
Not things that I wish to be the best at, hobbies. Because those hobbies always end up with me doing a podcast on whatever that is.
Yeah.
But it's definitely film and cooking. Like those two things are things that I'm like, okay, I just like to do these, and I'm okay with being subpar in the knowledge of these things. But I do love film. It's like that creative thing that I can just kind of shut off my brain and just enjoy it. And yeah, definitely Nolan, like Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer, and that whole piece is just phenomenal. I don't know if you guys have seen it or not.
I haven't. I gotta watch it.
You know what's really a shame is that I watched it at my parents' house. We streamed it, and like I don't know if their internet wasn't that good or something. So it looked like it was like in 720p. And it's
Potato
like
quality.
yeah, and
the
it was
worst.
like the worst movie to watch. And like you
First
could
world
watch
problems.
like Old School or something, and you could watch that, and it would just be just as funny. But it's like this movie that they spent all this extra money shooting everything on film, and it's beautiful, and everyone went and saw it. in IMAX and everything, and I'm watching it like barely streamed through the internet. It just seemed like a kind of disgrace. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to watch it again. There's an amazing quote in it that it's my only songwriting idea of 2024.
Well,
But
don't give it away yet, or have you written it already?
Well, I'm putting it in the ether now, so no one takes it.
Ether.
Don't take it.
I gotta find it though. It's so incredible. It's right here. You see beyond the world we live in, and there's a price to pay for that. That is said to Oppenheimer by his friend when he's describing him. This part, he's describing Oppenheimer as a prophet, and Oppenheimer is kind of saying like, "Well, if I'm a prophet, then they'll listen to me." And his point is, no, you're a prophet, so you cannot be wrong once. Which is like a great thing to keep in mind, that never pitch yourself as a prophet because you're going to end up as a martyr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The higher the expectations, the easier it is to tear someone down, always.
Yeah, and
That's
you
how it
just
all
can't
works.
be human.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Everybody's human.
That's the tough part about being in the spotlight, man.
Yeah.
I feel like your world is even starting to change a little bit more as you become more famous, I guess.
Yeah, shit's definitely changing.
I mean, we were talking about this morning. It's like you can't go watch Flatland at front of house anymore.
Not anymore. No. And it used to be just kind of like, hey, you're the opener. Cool. Do you mind if we get a photo? I'm like, awesome. But now the difference is I'm not the opener now. Now I'm Colby Acuff. And so we see it now where like I go out in front and definitely some towns, sure. But some towns definitely not. Which is fine. I mean, I'm the kind of person too, like I dive right into the fans. I'm out at the merch booth every single night after the show, signing stuff, talking to people, taking photos. And I always say like, I have nowhere to go. So like, don't worry, you're not wasting my time. If the person at the end of the line decides it's taking too much time, you got here first. That's like the way it goes. Mm-hmm. Which is cool to see. It's cool to see that merch line getting longer at the end of the shows.
Yeah.
That people actually, give a shit about me, because I remember a long time where no one did. I think everybody remembers those times. But it is getting harder to like go to front of house and watch a show. So like this last weekend, I was just stuck in this little green room because I really didn't have anywhere to go. There was like no separation in the club that we were in. And that's kind of like, whoa, that's a totally different reality. No, don't get me wrong. Like I can,
Yeah, I know.
it's just at the shows is when it's kind of one of those things.
I remember when we were on the Brantley cruise in like 2017, 2018, and Luke had like this suite, and it like had a jacuzzi in it and like a piano, and like it was really nice. And we were up in there drinking, having a good time. I'm like, dude, this is so great. Like this cruise is so much fun. And he's like, I can't leave this suite. Like we're on this boat for 3 days or 4 days. And so I'm running around, and Jake and I are chugging beers and being silly. And he's up in this, he's just kind of like in this perch, He's like, if I leave, it's like, I just can't, I'll walk 5 steps. And then it's just a meet and greet line, which like, he loves the fans, but it's like, he can't hang with Jake and I and chug beers at this pool down here because it would just be a whole thing. And now, like, I remember I made a joke. I'm like, oh, boohoo, money bags or whatever, But it's like now it's like he can't even walk into Walmart. Like there is a negative side to being famous.
Yeah, for sure. That's even little things like you have to be on 100% of the time. You can't have a bad day because that person, that's the only time they're ever going to have an interaction with you. Right. And if you're having a bad day and aren't on, then they're going to be like, man, that guy's a dick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is I see fame as a byproduct of making music.
Yeah.
I don't see making music as a byproduct of being famous.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the fame thing, you got to be famous so that people can hear the songs. Mm-hmm. You just have to have that brand to push the songs to people so that they can hear it. But it's also one of those things where, for me, it is the side effect. It is not the
end goal.
Yeah.
It's not the output. It's the side effect of the output.
Yeah.
And like I'm getting to the point, like a little. like a little bit more famous than I am now would be like that'd be like kind of the okay, I feel good about this, but obviously I want to take it as far as I possibly can, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a yin and yang there.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a sweet spot.
Right.
You know, it's like if you become super famous, if you're like Taylor Swift, and it's just like your life just becomes super complicated. You can't even like go to the grocery store.
Can't do anything.
Yeah. Why would you go to the grocery store? You don't do that even.
I don't even go to the grocery store.
Yeah, but you end up living in this like weird controlled environment.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's obviously a scary thing to think about, but also like that's assuming that it goes to that level, which, you know, I never would assume that they would go to that level. Once again, like I just want to work on my hard ticket right now.
Yeah.
And get that built up.
Make that 1,000 instead of 350. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
get it to 2,500.
Yeah.
That's the big goal.
25,000 heard.
Yeah.
25,000 would also be a cool goal.
Yes. Well, I am willing to bet that the first stadium show that you play with us, there will be 25,000 people in that stadium while you play.
That's true. That is crazy.
I mean, I think literally, I asked Cappy because Flatland was in the spot that you were this past tour, the first spot.
No, Brent.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I forgot.
Yeah.
I thought it was Brent.
Mr. Brent Cobb, but for those not knowing,
Yes.
who is amazing,
Well,
by the way.
and so then I'm like, Cappy, how many people are in the stadium when Downbeat? And he said there was 22,000 people.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a plaque on my wall from Luke's first club tour, and it says like AEG presents this as a token of a good tour. Total 55,000 tickets sold throughout the tour, and we played all these clubs. The first stadium show that we played, we sold 55,000 tickets in one show.
Crazy.
Yeah, dude, that's heinous.
Yeah. I remember
Heinous,
when you guys played that beach show and just the picture of it.
Oh, in Virginia Beach?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. That gold, like over the head
Yes.
photo of that beach show, and I was like, none of these people can even hear the music. It's so many people. Like,
That was a fun show.
it's crazy.
How many 350 cap clubs have we going to fit in your first night?
Yeah,
Too many.
A lot. I'm not the best.
Too many.
Yeah.
super cool.
All of them.
Yeah.
I love the, like, you guys talking about the 4 songs, 5 songs too. That's honestly like one of the things that Matt and I talked about when we're doing the show at Winners is we're like, if we give people 5 songs, that's like their opening set if they're first of 4 or first of 3
Right.
on a show. So like, you know, it's weird for us asking people to come play a full band, but at least like, hey, this is a trial run for if you want to try to do that thing. You know,
Right.
where are you at right now? How close are you to be ready to be the first of 3 or first of 4?
Well, 90% of it too. I think what we've, you know, if you have a good live show, that is great.
Yeah.
But how do you treat the PM?
Yep.
How efficient are you?
Yeah.
How much do you know about sound? Are you running your own ears? Do you
Yep.
have the front of house? What are the things that make it so easy for the sound guys? And that's another thing that, you know, Eric Bowen, my PM and keys player, has been so great at. I mean, the guy, he could literally PM for anybody. Like he builds all our cables. He built the rack. He does. He kind of just is that guy. And he has decided to spend a lot of time and energy on our project, which for me is phenomenal.
You're like, that's what you want.
Yeah, the loyalty is definitely seen. And I was telling this to the Flatline guys the other night. I would be a dumbass to think that I could do this without, you know, him and Preston and the guys in the band and everybody else. You know, I just write the songs. I make a product that then we go out and do, but like I'm rendered completely useless when it comes to setup.
Yeah. I remember we hired a production manager, and I was like, why do we need a production manager? Like, we have Todd, our front house guy's already doing that. And they were like, you'll see.
Yeah.
And Jerry was sending us like the CAD designs of the stage that he built, and he's like, this is what the 360 tour is going to be like in the arena, and this is the moving part, and I was just like, my eyes are just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into putting on a show, dude. It's crazy.
Right.
And like they had to get this stage with a stage on top of it that spun 360, and then it had all these cables, and then you got to wire everything. I'm like, I just play the steel guitar. Like,
Yeah,
it's
you got one of
so
Right.
complicated.
All of a sudden, the show and like all the pieces become. I mean, that's why you have to have so many people though, because it becomes. It's so much bigger. The live show is so much bigger than you and a song, because you're trying to entertain while also trying to convey the messages of those songs, and you're trying to create these moments. You know, I used to say this a lot. I don't know if I believe in it quite anymore, just because as people know more of the songs, every song matters all of a sudden. Like everyone's like, no, this is my favorite song. Please play this song. And that matters a ton. But I used to say, like when no one knew our songs, I was like, boys, if we start it well and end it well, the middle, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're going to remember the beginning and they're definitely going to remember the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's live music.
Right.
You have to have moments in the middle that bring it up or down and take them on a journey, but
Yeah,
that's
I
totally
do
the way it
believe
is.
though. I'm under the impression, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I believe that people show up to a live show to watch you fail. In theory, I think people want to go to a live show to watch a fire on stage, because you're going to a show. If you've never heard the band before, you're like, I want to go watch this band because I love their music, and I want to vet them live. If they're good, I'll buy a ticket again. I'll bring my friends. If not, I'm not going to go back. So I always say, like, the best thing you can do for a live show is allow a fire to happen on stage so you can put it out as fast as you possibly can, and then they'll never forget that moment ever in the history of time, and they will always buy a ticket.
Yeah.
Prove them right to prove them wrong.
Here's an example. Matchbox 20 at Bridgestone, Rob's acoustic guitar goes out, and they had to scramble live, and they did, and they crushed. And Kyle covered it on electric, and they figured it out. And Rob Williford was telling me, he's like, I'll never, ever forget that show. That's his favorite band. Shit got on fire. They put it out like the professionals, legends that they are. And
Right.
And people at that venue got a one-of-a-kind, beautiful experience.
Yeah.
I used to break strings on purpose when we play in bar bands. Like we play in the bars, and we still don't have a guitar tech, but I used to break a lot of strings, a ton of strings. I was playing really hard, and I'd like look at a string, and I'm like, that thing is not gonna last tonight. But I leave it on, and I break it so I could change it while I'm singing, and like give someone an experience that looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan used to do that all the
I was
time.
just about
Yeah,
to
it's
say
that famous clip of him doing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's genius, and it's not very hard. As long as I don't lose the tuning peg, I'll be fine. But then I bought a bag of Taylor tuning pegs. I have them on my mic stand, so that if it happened and the tuning peg flew out of the guitar, I could just reach in the bag and change the string from there. But those are the kind of things, you know. I remember one time we played a show. We were in Montana. I broke 2 strings. We played for 3.5 hours, no breaks. Guys were getting up during the set to go take a piss while the band was still playing. I would break a string, change it live, or if I would break a string and had to go backstage, I'd go backstage and play it, and the guys would just break into a 12-bar blues. But we kept the 500 people in this Montana bar for 3.5 hours because it was the very first time we'd ever played it. And the guy was like, well, I want you guys to play for 3 hours. I'm like, no, I want to play an artist set. I want to play for 90 minutes to 2 hours. And he said, no, you need to play 3 hours. I said, all right, motherfucker, watch this. And we played for 3.5 nonstop the whole time.
It's like so long that you guys are getting hungry on stage. So you got to frying some eggs up there.
I just kept telling the bar to bring buckets of beer up.
Sounds amazing.
We just
right
had
now.
buckets and buckets and buckets of beer on stage. There's empty bottles everywhere. I'm not kidding. Like I remember Eric getting up to go take a piss from the keys, knocking over beer bottles. I'm just singing, just going ape shit on stage.
That sounds so amazingly blessed. I want to do that right now.
There is some amazing moments that come from those bar gigs. You know, some of those moments where it's like there's a lot of them that were just, you know, you're dragging tough and you're just like, oh God, I don't fucking want to do this. But some of those shows were like those huge memory shows, just like lightning in a bottle, stuff that, you know, definitely enhanced our live show. Those little things are the things that kind of take you, you know, back around.
Yeah.
So,
and you'll look back on those so fondly too.
yeah, I mean, I do. I remember though that show just being like, God damn it, what the fuck? But now it's like, but now it's good.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, those were the days.
Right, exactly.
Well, I mean, I remember like when I started playing for Michael Ray, all they would talk about was like in the van days and all the crazy stuff, you know. I was like, guys, we're on a bus. Isn't now the good old days? I'm like, yeah, but like the van days. I'm like,
Yeah, no, it's true. Like,
but 8 a.m. van call, bro. I do not miss that.
no.
7 a.m. I had 6 a.m. van call.
Oh,
when
we've
I was
had
with
plenty of
Charles.
those.
Ugh.
We've had plenty of those.
Only for Charles would I do that.
King Charles,
Yeah,
he's the best.
Charles Wesley Gowan. Yeah, for
But yeah,
sure.
there's definitely there's something that sucks about it, but living in the suck creates so much character and memories.
Oh,
And that's when you become brothers with the guys in the
Right.
band.
And it's so much so about positivity. Like, I think really if I had jobs to say is my job description, I sing, I write songs, and I am the person who can never be negative. I have to make sure that like if someone is upset, because I've dealt with things and bands. When something is bad, it becomes toxic so quickly,
so true, man.
Yeah.
and it ruins the songs. It is it's like there's a stick in the spoke of your wheel. I just cannot explain what the feeling of that is. But it's terrible.
It's like cancer, man.
It is, yeah, for sure. It spreads so quickly and becomes toxic, and it becomes tense, and the songs start to suck.
Yeah.
And the live show starts to devolve, and it's just like, oh fuck, I have to fix this immediately. And so and I haven't dealt with that in 3 years. These guys are amazing, obviously, but there are some times like where shit gets serious. In fact, Josh, my drummer, this last week, he called me. We were leaving Tuesday. He called me on Monday, and he said, I have pneumonia. I can't get off the couch. I think I'm going to need a sub. And the only person I could think to call was Jake. But I was like, I'm going to give you 2 days. I think in reality, if you can't get off the couch by Wednesday, then I might cancel the shows. Because it's almost to the point now, like where we're such a family. I just don't know if I could replace him. But I'll think about it. I might, figure it out. I know you guys had rehearsal, so I'd have to like really scramble for a drummer. He shows up on Wednesday. He's like, okay, I'm on steroids. Because he's allergic to penicillin. And so he's like, let's go. And he sang background vocals, drummed every night, rode in the van. I mean, he went home early and got sleep, but he was in coughing fits. He did not feel good. I mean, coming off pneumonia, that's a pretty serious deal.
Very.
And he just had another baby. But he still made that decision to go. And that's the kind of shit that matters to me.
Yeah.
Not just as a boss, but definitely as a friend and as someone as an artist, as someone who's creating. He didn't want to miss it.
Well, I think that's not just in the music world, man. I mean, it's
True.
Every job you have, your leaders and how they treat you and how they act is how the culture is.
Right.
If you see people that are doing like shady things or like not the stuff that you want to see happening, and you just see too much grime, it's going to leak into your world,
Yeah, it's going to gunk it up.
Even us, like being at a writer's round, like hosting a writer's round, I have to be happy and fun.
Yes.
And like in the moment. And if I'm not, it's really easy to tell that I'm not,
Yeah, you don't want to be somewhere else.
Yeah, you have to be there and you have to be focused. And it's like, that's hard. That's hard to do. I'm sure it's hard on stage.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is another one, not to keep going back to it, but it's pretty recent, and it's just like a big part of my life. But like the night that my dad passed,
Yeah.
we were playing in Knoxville, and I walked off stage, and I talked to my mom before I went on stage. Also, we played the Knoxville Theater, or the Tennessee Theater in Knoxville, and it is beautiful. I wore bibs on stage. I definitely feel like I was not supposed to do that, but I did. I feel like I needed to be in a tux, but it was phenomenal. And I talked to my mom before, and she's like, it's probably going to happen soon, like we knew. And we got back to the hotel. It was 1:30 in the morning, got the phone call. And I didn't want to tell anybody because we still had to go play the Ryman the next day, the biggest show of our lives. So it's kind of like, okay, I took the information, I turned off the light, and I was staying with, me and my bass player always shack up together in the hotel. 2 beds, of course. Strong. But I lay down in the bed, turn the light off. I'm like, I'm going to bed. And I know he could hear me, but I'm just like softly crying sobbing. I go to sleep, wake up the next day, Go down for van call. Don't tell anybody. Get in the van, put on my headphones. Don't tell anybody. Like, not that I didn't want to tell anybody, but I didn't want to open up the can of worms. I just had to get through the day. And when I announced on stage at the Ryman that my dad had passed, I had the guys off stage and I was going to play American Son, which is the title track for the record and everything. I was going to debut it there. And I told the story, and I made the statement that my dad had passed the night prior, and including the guys backstage, the entire crowd, obviously, you could hear through my ears, through the talkback, or through the room mics, I could hear this audible, like, and the guys backstage, I'm like looking at them, and they're like, you know, they didn't know. And so the whole thing was, but that's the kind of thing you got to do. I couldn't change, even though it was drastically personal for me, and I know I could talk to my guys about literally anything. That day was not about me. I had something going on for me, but I couldn't let it bleed through to the show. And when I announced I made one moment about me, and I made one moment about my dad, and I dedicated this thing to my dad. But that's what it was about. It wasn't about the fact that he died. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when the guys came back on, they had found out that way, and it was so much more of a powerful performance for the rest of it. Before, it was our Opry debut and Flatland's Opry debut, and then the last 5 songs of our set were for my dad. And that's the kind of stuff, though, that you gotta, you know.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that you juggle when it comes to like bringing. What is my job when we're on the road? And how can I make it not about me at the most?
Yeah.
Is the reality of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. I mean, it's just so heavy.
Yeah, I know. I'm not very strong yet, but I'm going to get there.
Yeah. I mean, but it's your show, so it could be about whatever the fuck you want it to be about. And if you want to dedicate part of it to your dad, then
you should.
You should.
Oh, for sure. No, I mean, I definitely wanted to. The last thing I wanted it to seem, though, was like, oh, I'm going to say this so that I can get.
No, I don't
You
think
know,
so.
and I didn't. I had worked on my speech quite a bit, and like I had to kind of work that out. But I'm so happy I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously. And you're right. I mean, I can make it whatever I want it to be about. But I do think for me, an MO for me is always, you know, I have a rule. It's like if I get to a fork in the road and I can pick myself or the band, I always pick the band. That's like a rule that I have. And so I do try to make it not about me as much as I possibly can without, you know, my name being plastered on everything and me singing. But like,
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal.
Man, there's so much more that comes back to you when you do it with other folks. You know what I mean? When you're
Oh yeah.
when you're getting to experience that thing with a family and, you know, team and just people you consider to be close to you.
I mean, personally, I love bands. I think bands are really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a band guy.
Yeah.
But the problem is I've had a lot of bands, and bands are really complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's too complicated. So I remember my very last band, I was like, I'm never having a band again. You know, fuck it. I'm going to put my name on it.
Yeah.
Which is something I didn't want to do because I didn't want my name to be the brand. But it's so much cleaner that way. And I do think everyone in general is happier that way. Because there's only one person. If something goes wrong, there's only one person to point a finger at, and that's me. And I'm totally down to take that. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm down to bear the burden. And even like as the artist, you know, I always say like the artist gets all the benefit of being an artist. There's no reason why we need to make any more. There's no reason why the artist needs to make, especially in the beginning stages, there's no reason why he needs to take so much of, and this is just me personally, like I am in a situation to pay out more than I take. So I need to do that because eventually my benefits are going to come through.
Yeah.
And they will be so polarizing compared to that point.
Yep.
But I already get all the benefits I need. I don't need to take any more. That's, you know, I don't know.
Well, I salute you, man, for taking care of your band.
Yeah.
And you treat them really well, and also pay them really well, especially for where you're at.
Yeah, I'm definitely very happy they're not here to also talk about this. No,
Fuck you, Colby.
We don't have enough microphones for all those guys.
Yeah.
That's true. We did try to do a band podcast one time, and it was just like
Pure chaos.
Yeah, it was pure chaos.
We somewhere there's a recording. We did one on the bus one time, and we were stoned. Well, not all of us, but
Most of you.
yeah. And we were all we just on like someone's phone, and it was just us asking Jake like the silliest questions. It was hilarious.
Honestly,
And-
probably a great podcast.
Yeah, and then Delaney was like, "This can never see the light of day," and then I think it's gone forever.
We were thinking about getting Starlink and putting it on the van and doing a live pod. Because originally it was like Starlink is for so we can move up to the Sprinter van, put Starlink on it, and then I can play online video games
Yes.
as we roll down the road. Then I was like, dude, we could go live in the van and do like a live podcast or stream live like our D&D play.
I was
Twitch
just gonna say
stream
D&D.
D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I'm thinking about it. I'm like thinking about our D&D play. I'm like, ugh, maybe not.
Ooh. There
Probably
needs to be
not.
a term for it's like locker room talk, but it's like D&D talk.
Yeah.
That's like van
2005.
talk,
Yeah.
dude. I mean, it's nothing crazy. You know, I mean, I'm a pretty open guy, but
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I go to the shopkeeper and I stab him with my axe. You know,
Yeah.
it's like weird shit like that.
yeah. I don't.
Okay,
Yeah. Plus, like,
Colby.
I don't know if I want people to see my D&D side quite yet.
Yeah.
That might be like a ticket giveaway situation.
What's your character's name?
I'm Cletus Coyote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a level. I think I'm a level 7. I'm a half drow, half elf ranger.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Checks
you're
out.
definitely a ranger for
That
sure.
checks out.
Yeah, but
Yep.
my next character, for anybody who watches D or plays D&D watching this, who cares? People are like fast forwarding through this part.
They're like,
They've not made it this
nerds.
far into the podcast.
But I will say that, like, for me, my next character, because you ranger. The funny thing about playing D&D with a band is everyone falls into their band role. This is like our very first playthrough as a band, and so
Bass player's the paladin, healing everybody.
no, bass player is Stefan's. He's a barbarian, big,
Okay.
strong, bonk guy. Jack's paladin.
Yeah.
Jack seems like a paladin guy for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
He's in the support. I got you. Okay.
But like I naturally fell into this role of like I was like leading. And so we're halfway through this campaign or whatever. And the campaign's just like never ending because Kyler just keeps making it up as we go, but we're 6-7 chapters into this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, we're just playing as a band. So for our next playthrough, I really want to change that up. And so I'm going to be a bard who is a gnome. And I'm just going to be like this weak little character. I'm going to buy a little tiny like guitar and play it as we roll down in the van. And
I have done
Bro, I'm making the robots make you a bard gnome right now.
that.
but I'm also going to be a werebear. So that means I can transform into like a giant bear and attack things if you piss me off.
I've definitely sat with the guitar during D&D and like played battle music when like you're
Yeah.
playing, and then like play when you're walking through the meadow, you play like yeah, the Shire shit, dude.
Yeah, dude. Shire shit
God
is
bless the Shire.
gas.
Man, this makes me want to play D&D so bad.
It's pretty fun. But
Are we
I
gonna
think
have
we
to do
should
a
play.
D&D podcast next?
Oh,
Maybe
please.
not everything is a podcast, though,
Yeah.
is it?
Nah, probably not.
Yeah, maybe
I-
like a stream.
Yeah.
Hey, but what about Howdy Neighbors?
Yeah,
That was a good idea that didn't come to fruition.
Yeah, Colby and I were gonna have a podcast called Howdy Neighbors, and we wrote a theme song.
Should I play it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
play it.
Howdy, neighbors.
It's pretty great. This is some supreme content.
Yeah, hey, you should put this on your new record so I can like have a Colby Acuff like single, you know, and single this.
Probably not. Is this it?
Do I gotta pull it up? It's a pretty good song.
Oh, nope. That's my vocal instructions.
Oh. Oh, dude, it's great. D&D is like time travel because it's like you're like, all right, let's get set up, and then you like crack a beer, and then like 2 hours later, you're like, where did that time go? And then like 10 hours later, you're like, where? I just spent a whole day
Well,
fucking around with my friends.
Yeah, because like the best part about doing it on the road as a band is that like normally people get together for maybe a couple hours or 5 hours once a week or once a month maybe.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, so for us we play every day for those long van rides, like 6 to 8 hours. So we're crushing campaigns.
Kind of great, though.
It's great, but I feel bad for Kyler, who's our dungeon master, who's just like,
And
oh my
steel
god,
guitar player.
yeah, and steel guitar player, and he's like, just like ripping through trying to make up new shit. Okay, here's the theme song for Kurt and I's podcast.
God.
Welcome to the block. Howdy, neighbor. Come on over. Don't even knock. Howdy, neighbor. We're two good friends living next door. We started a podcast because we're neighbors. Howdy, neighbor. Howdy, neighbor. Yeah. Howdy, neighbor.
Yeah. I forgot the Tim Allen thing.
Yeah.
There.
Where bear gnome
Let me see
bard.
that.
We definitely wrote that after smoking
Strong.
weed and watching like Lord of the Rings. There you go.
That's
Yeah,
what the
where's it?
robots think that.
Yeah.
That's me.
Let me see it. I haven't seen it yet. Okay, I can see that.
It looks
Howdy,
just like
neighbor.
me.
It does.
It's pretty. Yeah, I mean,
See?
you guys are both cute and have lots of hair.
Yeah, it's
Very
it needs
nice.
a little more reddish in there, but
Yeah,
No. Let
No.
me be what I want.
his hair is pretty red. Look,
okay, yeah, that's true. You know what's funny about playing
Ooh.
D? I always like play like a good, like a lawful neutral or lawful good character.
yeah,
that's
it's because
like
you
how
are
I-
lawful good.
No, dude, my character has to be strong leadership type, but terrible charisma. It's my favorite. Because then you're not held to being like some lawful thing.
Right.
Yeah,
I need to like just as a social experiment, like play like an evil person.
yeah, it's fun
Yeah.
because you're just in the abyss. You don't have to like really be evil.
You can't. It's
Forget
so
how
hard to
deep I
play
go.
because you have to. The problem with if you're really strict about D&D, when you're playing, if you picked evil, then you have to be evil, and eventually you will have to like
Murder all your friends.
turn against the
Exactly.
campaign, and you will be
Yeah.
killed, or you will ruin the campaign and kill everybody.
Yeah, cyanide pills.
Yeah.
Tangent.
Yes. Anyway, D&D. Well, did we cover all the music shit you're doing or what?
What else do we have?
All right. Record. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Touring.
Yep. Creative a little bit on the
Yeah.
record, which I think's awesome.
Thank you.
I want to go to the abyss with you, though. I
Yeah.
know we've talked about multiple podcasts.
Is
Should
this-
we eat?
Is this?
I was gonna
mushroom
say
thing
if
or
you
what?
if you want
Let's go
to
break bread.
and then come back,
Yeah,
pretty
and,
hungry.
and
I
go to
love
the
it.
abyss.
intermission
Yeah.
part 2 coming up.
Yeah. Let's do that. Does everybody have time for that?
Oh yeah,
I'm starving.
Let's get some like Mexican or whatever.
cool. I
Yeah.
have to pee too.
All right, sick.
Blasting a piss.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is the end of section 1 of the podcast. Welcome to section 2 next. American.
Bye.